Since the fall of man, a war has raged between good and evil. Over the centuries, this war has distorted the truth. Now the truth is perceived as lies, and lies acknowledged as truth. To this day, the battle continues as we investigate and debate the truth behind the history and mystery of the universe. We are Paratruth Radio.
There are many great names in the radio industry, and tonight, Paratruth Radio gets to talk to one of them.
Now Paratruth presents Riding with the Caravan to Midnight with special guest John B. Wells.
What's up, folks? Welcome to Paratruth Radio. My name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And we have an awesome show for you tonight. I know it's been a while since I've been on. I've been out, as you all know, for the past few weeks working on a movie. That film is now pretty much finished. I am in post-production, so we got about 6 months ahead of us in the intricate editing process. But with that said, you know, it's kind of nice to be back. And Justin, to hear your fine voice, my good sir, it's pretty nice. I've missed the show.
Yeah, it's been hard doing it on my own, but I'm glad that you're here for this one. It's gonna be a good one for sure.
Folks, if you don't know already, with all the advertising we've been doing, we have on a very special guest. His name is John B. Wells, and he is the host of Caravan to Midnight. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome John B. Wells.
Hello, gentlemen. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on.
So,
what do y'all want to get into today?
Well, I'm sure we'll get into a whole lot of things today. So, first off, we do want to give you a chance to tell everybody kind of how you got started with radio.
Well, you know, that's some of the that's one of those stories that it's good that somebody doesn't ask me around people who are close to me, because I generally respond with, "Oh man, nobody wants to hear that story." But I'll give you the short version. It's you know, my dear old mother was really quite a woman, and she decided that because in those days I was trying to be an actor, you know, as I placed the back of my hand up to my forehead, you know, and so she said, and she had a customer whose husband was associated with a radio station. I believe he was the production director there. So she decided she wanted to do a commercial, and she wanted me to do it. So I wrote a spot for her, and went over to this station. It was an adult contemporary station then, but it's like a cowboy channel now, country western music, you know. Mm-hmm. And when I went in, you know, I've got long hair and all this, and the guy kind of rolled his eyes a little bit at me, and I had the script there, and he had a Studer B67 with a little counter on it. It's got the red counter actually counts in seconds. It's actually a pretty good little clock, as well as what I'm trying to say, a place where you can use that it doubles as a where am I on the tape kind of thing. You can make your notes with that. But it's also a really good clock. So he said, look, just hit this thing and just pick a spot and on this counter and just try and get it as close to 60 as you can without going over. I'm like, okay. So he came back and I stuck my head out the door, and I said, I think we're good here. And he came in, and he sort of rolled his eyes when he left. But when he came back, he listened to it, and then he looked at me, and he got this look on his face like, I'm so sorry about the rolled eyes. But he didn't say anything. And he went and got this fellow named Ted Jones. He looked like, to me, he looked like the theatrical version of an Australian gun runner of some sort. He had his long red hair, you know, and he came in, he listened to it, he looked around, and he put a spot together, and that was that. And he gave me a cassette copy of it, and said, you could do this work. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, you could do voiceovers. Well, I knew nothing about it, so I just said, thank you very much, stuck it in my pocket and left. So, and that was Mom's spot for her boutique. Well, I played it for a buddy of mine who had actually quit high school. In fact, he's recently deceased. He passed away Wednesday before Thanksgiving last year at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And but I'll tell you, if Mike hadn't done what he did, his name was Mike Doyle, Michael Lee Doyle. And I played it for him. We were sitting out in this old Jaguar smoking. And I said, listen, this is funny. Let me play this thing. So I played it for him, and he looked at me, and he didn't roll his eyes. He said, let me have this for a couple of days. So he played it for the man who would become my first boss, who is now known as Capitol Hill correspondent Jim Miklashevsky. In those days, he was James Allen Miklashevsky, and he was a bad-to-the-bone, very aggressive, AM radio jock, and everybody knew him. So they called me up, and they said, we'd like for you to come and do our spec spots that we'll give to our salesmen, and they'll go out and they'll play these spots so the clients can hear what their brand or their store or whatever will sound like on a real no kidding radio spot. And we'll give you $25 for each one of these, and there may be 10 or 15 of them a day. And I'm going, oh boy, I'm in the dough, right? Well, this turned into doing the afternoon drive news, the spec spots, the real spots, and taking the bag with the new log that started midnight and the carts that were going to be loaded that the commercials were on out to the remote transmitter site every day for the whopping sum of $1.60 an hour, which was minimum wage in those days.
Oh,
so it's like my $25 a spot didn't work out too well.
Right.
Well, but this was a good thing because I was still at university, and I didn't get, I didn't go far out of town. I went right up the road to TCU. And I was living on the east side of Fort Worth. TCU was on the west side of Fort Worth, and it took probably 20 minutes to get there. Well, I learned what I needed to learn for the business that I had no idea at the time that I was going to get into. And that was microphone technique, where to hold how close to put it to your mouth, and how to keep from popping, and how to control your breath, and all that. Now, with digital editing, now this stuff is a breeze. In the old days, we had to do with razor blades, but I learned about that too. So I stayed there a year, and then this girl with really bright orange hair that my friend Mike Doyle worked for this station, which is why he took it to Mick. And he was their chief engineer, and he would spend a lot of time out there at the remote transmitter site, which was great because you drive out Interstate 20, which wasn't even complete in those days, and you get off on a little road, and then there was this little obscure entryway into a road that went down almost a mile through the woods, and then all of a sudden it would open up into this vista of pastures with 6 antennas that formed the directional signal, because this radio station was something else. I mean, it would be coming in loud and clear here, and you walk down the street 2 blocks, and you couldn't hear it at all. It was a directional pattern. It was just really kind of strange. But we'd shoot our pistols out there and everything else, have a little target practice, because nobody could hear anything. It was an unincorporated part of the county. Mm-hmm. It was not incorporated into a city, so we could shoot our pistols, and so we got big shots. And Mike and I'd hang out there and then do that until it got too dark to do it. And so I got this call from these guys at TM, Bill Shaughnessy and Wally Warrow. And they said, hey, come over to TM Productions. This is one of the biggest jingle houses in the world. And they would make music for all these radio stations. And in fact, they did some automated radio stations as well. And they would give people these giant reels of magnetic tape. So they wanted to use me on one of their channels, which was the urban thing, because they thought I sounded black or something. I don't know what the rationale was, but it's like, yeah, maybe I'm doing a Barry White. I didn't even know who he was in those days, So I went over there, and they said, look, if we like your audition, we'll give you $50, and if not, well, we'll send you down the road. I said, sounds good to me. So then I had a little gig. Oh boy, $50. Well, in those days, it would actually do a lot more. I mean, you could fill your gas tank, I don't know how many times for $50, a lot of them. So then this woman with the orange hair comes in, and all this black eyeliner that Mike had taken a kind of a fancy to, and he hired her as a transmitter watcher out there. And she said, listen, Kenny Rundle over at the zoo, which was this a famous rock station with really bad numbers. Kenny Rundle, one of the nicest guys in the world, he lost his sight, and kind of lost touch with him. He's still around, but anyway, that's what happened to Ken. I can think of a dozen better choices to have something like that happen to him, but I wouldn't really wish it on anybody. But Anyway, Kenny Rundle has an opening at the zoo. It's for part-time. And I need your production room so that I can make a demo tape. She goes, but I'll pay you back. I mean, like it was my production room. I'm like, yes, what can I do for you? And she said, but I'll pay you back by telling you about this job opportunity, and you can pitch it too. Well, cut a long story short, I got the job. And about April 7th, I had kind of grown bored with alive and beautiful music, plus this mom and pop station that was literally mom and pop, and their son was the sales manager. It was like I was in hell, okay? So they said, well, we just don't, the head guy calls me in and says, I don't think your services will be required anymore, but he didn't know that I already dropped this tape off. Because she finished her tape at 3 o'clock in the morning. I started mine right after she left at 3 in the morning, finished at 9, and then drove to Dallas and dropped this thing off, and then came back to work, and I was late. Well, a couple of days later, it was like this little dude looked like he had kissed a parakeet on its bottom with his little mustache. He said, the old man wants to see it. So the old man let me go. And he said, if I were you, I would not tell anyone that I worked for this station. And I said, well, that's a pretty safe bet, sir, because last time I told somebody, which was just a couple of days ago over at this FM rocker in Dallas, that I worked at this station, the guy laughed. So I think I'll spare myself that. But I shook him by the hand. I said, thank you very much for the opportunity. Best of luck to you. See you. And I hit the road. And a week later, they hired me. And so it was 3 months of working the staff meeting from noon until 2 in the afternoon, while the jocks, who were like the lords and ladies, would go to lunch. Then, after about 2 weeks of that, I would come back 12 hours later and go from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. Saturday morning. And it was wonderful because there were all kinds of people calling, and I would actually answer the request lines. It was so much fun. And then, of course, there was nothing but party people that were calling that were up at that hour. So that was great. Well, after 3 months of that, they put me on 10 to 2 at night, which was also quite an eye-opener, too, because, again, now the party people are still awake, and I just happened to be off the air at 2, where they're getting really sloshed and wild, so that was great. So happily, that didn't go more than 6 months, and they put me in the afternoon drive, and it worked out pretty well. It was, after 2 years, we achieved a massive share of 23.8 men 18 to 49 in the afternoon drive. And, of course, you would think somebody would say, hey, we can make some money with this guy, but instead it scared everybody to death and made a lot of other people mad. So they told me my services were no longer required. So then I went into 25 years of continual voiceovers, because the voiceover people at the ad agencies, the guys and girls who were going to hire voices, they were listening to the zoo. They were listening to me in the afternoon, and they'd gotten to where they go, hey, why don't we get him to do the spot? And so they did. And so it got to where I was having trouble getting to my air shift on time. I mean, I had to really roll it to get there on time, because my morning schedule was filling up with voice gigs. So about the time that there was this big plot to get rid of the zoo by this horrible consultant named Jeff Pollock. And, this guy made some really idiotic decisions, and I don't mind using his name on the air. Maybe he'll sue me. I can ask him for some discovery. He won't want to do that. But he didn't do the station any favors, but there was a secret plot to just destroy the zoo, which they eventually did. About within 4 years after I left, the station went off the air. So it worked. But then again, the enemy station went off the air a couple of years after that, so it was kind of a wash. But anyway, this voiceover gig went on for 25 years. And then I realized that I was getting really, really bored. And it wasn't because of the work, and it wasn't because I wasn't making a good living. It's that I had no contact with any people, really. I wanted to work with the crew again.
Oh,
it's like there's no, when you get computers in there, I don't need a secretary now. I don't need an engineer now.
Right.
I don't need to put this stuff on reels and send it Federal Express. I can just send them a file along with their email. I'd send them a link to it. I developed this. I told him what I wanted, and he put it together. And rather than put it up on an FTP site where anybody that has access to it can see everything that everybody else is doing and steal it if they want to, they just had a link that went just to their file. And so that went along for a while. But it was like, I'm by myself. I feel like Elvis must have felt. He's by himself. He doesn't even have any bandmates to hang out with, Yeah. So I went to Tom Owens, who was this genius program director who had put me into Afternoon Drive and had displaced this minor legend of a guy. His numbers just weren't that good, so he put me in there and they started climbing. Everybody thought it was awful because they, there's this imaginary camaraderie there. I don't know. It was just weird. But anyway, I went to see Tom, and I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And it turns out that I didn't know this at the time. I just knew that he worked for Premier Radio Networks, big one. Mm-hmm. So I got with a guy that I know over there, calls himself Cousin Deke. That's not his real name, that's his handle.
Oh.
And I said, "Where's Tom?" And he goes, "He's in Dallas, man." I said, "What?" I thought he was in San Antonio at the corporate offices. He goes, "No, he's on the whatever floor it was. I don't remember, 5th, 6th, one of them." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I would like to see Tom." He says, "Well, come on over." So Deke is an interesting cat. All he has to do is come near a woman, and she becomes pregnant immediately. He's got like 6 kids now, and he just works the system beautifully. The guy makes so much money, it's ridiculous. But he also images about 5 stations. It used to be one production director for every state for each station. Now you got one production director imaging, like in Deke's case, like almost a half a dozen.
Wow.
So he's earning his money. And so we go through the security, and he's smiling at the right people, and I'm smiling at him too. We go right past the locked doors, and we go right past the security, and go right in there. I just knocked on Tom's door. A couple of lunches later, he turned me over to this other guy. And I flew down to San Antonio to see him, had lunch, and the next thing, they got me a slot on Coast to Coast AM. The people at Coast to Coast did not know what they were getting. Effectively, they were just told to put me on, which I'm sure that, was probably not the most diplomatic move, but it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that ruffled a few feathers. Hey, who's this guy,
Mm-hmm.
So I did one show in 05. I did nothing in 06. I did nothing in 07. I think I did either 1 or 2 shows in 08, but the one I remember was with the visionary science fiction writer Ray Bradbury himself. It was like, you got to be kidding me. The author of Fahrenheit 451 and the Martian Chronicles and all that. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. So I asked for him, and I got him. So then nothing happens in 09. But then I started getting a few in 2010, just a few. And then in 11, I started calling a lot. And I did quite a few shows in 2011. And the years were just zipping by. It's sort of like, wow, what a long, plodding, course.
Right.
But at the end of 2011, Lisa Lyon said, "We would like for you to take the Saturday night slot if you're interested." And I said, "Let me think about it." "Okay, I'll do it." And and as they say, the rest is history. It worked out pretty well over there. The audience responded, and they liked what I was doing, and but they liked it a little bit too much because, by all accounts, the numbers were very, very high. The same thing that happened at the zoo happened at Coast to Coast AM. The cume on Saturday nights equaled or surpassed, by all accounts that I received, they equaled or surpassed the cume of the other 6 days of the week. This was not helpful politically either. Mm-hmm. And so management was getting pushed into a corner where they really needed to make a decision that they did not want to make. And so they didn't. They just decided to cut me loose. And when that happened, I thought, okay, because I didn't have enough going on. I didn't have enough going on to satisfy myself. Mm-hmm. I could go on taking the money and making a living, or I could try and actually do something with my life besides just make money. I mean, believe me, I've heard the screech of the eagle, and I've also heard the gurgle of the swamp, I'd like to say. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's something to be said for making a living, for sure, because, when Clear Channel started collapsing, which it eventually went away, and now it's iHeart Media Management, LLC, Clear Channel's gone. When that whole thing that happened in 2008, so I didn't realize that I was enduring the slings and arrows of the economic recession. I did not realize this because I wasn't tracking with that kind of data. I was hearing the talking heads on TV and all this, but it didn't really mean anything to me. I'm not in the markets. I don't care. But then I found out that Clear Channel had run up about $16 billion in debt and had flipped the whole company to Bain Capital. which is, as you may know, is Mitt Romney's associated company.
Okay.
And so when that happened, man, there came a point where they just quit paying people, just like for months, just nothing while they worked it all out. And I thought, things are getting really thin.
Right.
Because all these radio stations across the country that I had worked with, suddenly you're getting payments from one company instead of 24 companies because Clear Channel bought virtually everything that was available out there. I think they had certainly 1,200 stations and maybe more. So that didn't work out too good. So 2009 was a little bit strange. And so I just went back out to L.A. and just took it easy for a few months and just kind of tried to rethink everything. And then here comes Coast to Coast. They start calling in 2010. So it's like, okay, let's do this thing.
Right.
Well, after I left Coast to Coast, like 5 or 6 days later, I left on the 28th. My last show was on the 25th of January, 2014. I got the word that my tenure with them was over with on Tuesday the 28th. And on the 3rd of February, we were up and rolling. And it was a wild careening takeoff. I mean, you could hear beer trucks rolling by and everything else because we didn't have time to get our studio together at all, you know. We had a lot of tech to sort out and everything else. And then on top of that, I had generated enough heat with the broadcasts over Coast to Coast that we immediately began being messed with electronically. And at first, we didn't really believe it. But in speaking with some of the guys in the technical department at Premiere, I mean, what are the chances of blowing 2 ISDN cards in less than 6 months?
Jeez.
It's impossible. But, and I said, I'm getting all kinds of crazy stuff on the computer and the email and all of this. He got back to me in a couple of days. He said, there's definitely an external influence being exerted on your apparatus over there. And I said, okay. So anyway, we put a bunch of tech in place to kind of minimize that and went forward. And now we're in 144 countries. And the membership has grown and grown and grown, and people are responding to it well, and it's the best job I ever had. It really is. Because you can say what you want, and you can bring people on who can say what they want, and I'm not going to argue with them. I mean, I may challenge them on a point or two, but they get to say what they got to say. They don't have the host, you know, go into a break or a phone call just about the moment that they're, you know, about to, you know, make a point or, you know, tell you the meaning of life, you know, after numerous consultations with the Dalai Lama and others, including the UFO guys or whatever. So that's the story. I wish I'd taken a little bit less time to tell you about it, but
no, that's fine.
But it's been an incredible journey for me, and I got to tell you, I would be completely remiss if I did not tell you this. On November the 16th, 2009, I crashed a motorcycle at about 70 miles an hour, just dropped it.
Oh, wow.
The next time you're in your car at about 70 miles an hour, just imagine just unbuckling your safety belt and just jumping out of the car, because that's effectively what happened. And when that happened, I only thought that I was a Christ believer and a Christian. But when that happened, what I experienced during the course of this is of like tumbling down the freeway at rush hour on a Monday at about 10 o'clock in the morning it was like being shown your own death and then being restored to life. And it was the beginning of a 2-year epiphany that has really not stopped since.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that this program, as well as my life, and this is not like, listen, I've crashed everything. I've been slammed into barns by unbroken horses. Firearms have gone off, lead flying around, stuff blowing up, all kinds of stuff. And I've had numerous opportunities to get rubbed out, but none of them were quite like this. And it was almost like, let me show you something, pal. You're dead. Now look. You're not dead. You understand? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced you fully understand. Come with me, Jimmy. Where are we going? We're going to the desert for a while, and we did. And I tell this story a lot of times, and I tell it in exactly the same way because that's what happened. And it's funny, when you are prepared to open your mind and your heart and just listen, just let go of yourself and listen, You'll be amazed what comes into your head, stuff that you couldn't make this stuff up if you had a week to work on it.
Right.
And more than that, you'll find it very difficult to repeat the things verbatim that you hear in your head, but you know that it's not you talking. And you'll question yourself, it's like, okay, come on, am I going nuts? I mean, is this you talking to me, or is this me talking to me? But you will get the answer to that question. And I cannot imagine that I would ever feel any differently about this experience, because it has been. You talk about taking a. I don't even want to flatter myself by saying a diamond in the rough, but just for the sake of expediency, you talk about taking something that looks like a dirt clod and making it into something. It was like if you can put a piece of carbon under enough pressure, when you let that pressure off, you got a diamond there.
Right.
Well, my conduct and to some degree my heart was about as black as carbon. But I got a lesson, and I got a mission, and I committed to that mission for better or worse. And that's my story, gentlemen, and I have to stick with it because it is my truth, which I have lived. Mm-hmm. And so I would say to everyone, before you decide that you're agnostic and nothing is known, I have to submit to you. And believe me, I'm not. There's nobody telling me to say this other than the Great One himself. And that is, we are not here on this planet to just freelance and just do what we want and serve ourselves. We are here to serve our Creator. End of story. If you do this, and if you say, all of this stuff is yours, everything that I see is yours, this body does not belong to me, this life does not belong to me, my very next breath will be given to me by permission. There's no guarantee there's going to be a tomorrow. There's no guarantee there's going to be a next breath. I could vapor lock 10 seconds from now, and that'd be the end of our conversation here. Once you understand that none of this belongs to you and that you are owed nothing, but you in fact owe for your life, you're on your way to a new world. And when you get there, you're going to be glad you went on that trip. You really will. You'll never be the same, and you will not want to go back to your former ways. So I don't know if you knew if you were walking into that one when you decided to talk with me, but I had to say that because I really feel it and I mean it, you know.
Well, and that's the one thing that I actually do enjoy with you is that you do talk your mind, and I completely get where you're coming from because both Eric and myself have been at that point in our lives as well, and that's where Paratruth Radio was truly born. But before we go any further, I do want to take our first break here, folks. You are listening to Paratruth Radio with special guest John B. Wells. We will be right back after Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
Now, Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
Did you know that the blood of an octopus is blue? Neither did I. But according to factslides.com, octopi have copper-based blood instead of iron-based blood, which is why their blood is blue rather than red.
This was Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we've been talking to John B. Wells about his illustrious life as well as Caravan to Midnight. Eric, I wanted to turn the mic over to you for a minute to get a question out to our guest here.
Yeah, well, you know, when you look at radio, just in general, a lot of shows kind of follow similar topics. You know, like for us, we always cover paranormal topics. There's also other shows that will cover sports or entertainment or education or business. But the Caravan to Midnight kind of covers a very broad spectrum of topics. And one in particular that is very similar to us is you cover the mysterious and the unexplained. Can you tell us a little bit of why you do that or what has inspired you to do such?
Well, first of all, it's because there is nothing pithy about about mainstream media. It is vacuous. It is more a vast wasteland, as television was once described. It's more a vast wasteland now than ever before. And the most interesting topics, in my opinion, because everybody has to you got to plot your own course. It's a big old ocean, and there aren't any corners or roundabouts, and you can go wherever you want on this ocean. Same as that's why they equate flying airplanes with sailing ships, not necessarily motorized ones, but case can be made for that too. And when you find so much unrewarding subject matter, and you realize that you have a forum where you can discuss absolutely anything that you want, then you'd be a fool not to do it, because there are other people out there, you may not know it, but you sense it, that there are other people who feel the same way you do, and they would like something new. They would like to be challenged. They would like to, many of them would like to find a reason to depart from their current paradigms and to bust into something else. Everybody really wants the truth of the matter, but you're not going to get it if you're threatened by sponsors, or you've got some hardcore progressive up there who somehow or another has managed to get the directorship of the station that you're at or the program that you're on, and he's taking a check. Now he has no problem. There's a lot of them out there. You've got hardcore progressives that are in charge of these radio stations. They'll take a check to run the so-called conservative talk show hosts, but they don't believe in any of it. And the moment that they get a chance to get rid of them, they will. The only thing that's governing the potential for staying or going is how are the numbers, how's the advertising revenue, and that's it. I mean, if Michael Savage, for example, whom I've only taken issue with on one thing, and that was when he said that if you want to combat world hunger, you start with Monsanto's golden rice. I was like, oh my God, you're a doctor and you're saying this? You remind us, it seems like 10 times per show, that you're a genius and a doctor and everything, and you're going to say this, and you're going to say, is there any guarantee you won't get cancer? Is there any guarantee? It's like, really? That's your justification for talking about taking Monsanto's food into your system? I don't agree with that. But virtually everything else that he says, I do agree with. I mean, he gets a little strident and a little wild with it, but he's far more intelligent and far more intellectual than some of the other hosts who are really strident out there too. And I won't name any more names. I think we can figure out who that might be. But I'll give you a hint. New World Order. Okay, you got it. All right. But I believe that the only reason they let Michael Savage speak the way that he does is because he brings in huge amounts of ad revenue. But if he was saying the things that he's saying, that revenue wasn't there, he wouldn't be there, but maybe 15 more minutes. So I admire him for doing what he does, because he was among the very first, if not the very first, to warn us about the peril that we are in through the Islamization of the United States, and that is happening. And it is a very, very serious problem, and it's going to get more serious as time goes by. It's not going to be a hand-holding, kumbaya kind of moment. Islam is a political agenda, and it's a political ideology, and it's based on slavery, murder, intimidation, and torture, with the rape that goes along with it. And it is bad for this country, and it is incompatible with Western civilization, and most certainly it is incompatible with America's philosophy, or what remains of it after this current crop of leftists has had their way with it. So that's why we do the varied range of programs that we do, and we don't go into it going, well, let's look at this guy, he'll talk about Jesus. But it's amazing how many hardcore scientists, hardcore authors, when I say hardcore, I mean accomplished and serious people, will bring their spirituality into the debate. And that's good, because many people send email and write letters and so forth saying that as a result of listening to Caravan at Midnight, they have re-examined their lives and they have decided to rejoin their faith. They've gone back to Christianity. They've gone back to God. They have surrendered their affinity for the secular world. It's lost its allure for them, and they've done their best to abandon it and go the other way. And so for my part, that's like mission accomplished. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about, Patrick Hatch will come on there and talk about CERN. The rumor has it that they're trying to open a portal and let some of these entities in. And for a lot of people, this is a real stretch. But the thing is, if you talk about paranormal, there is nothing on earth more paranormal than the Holy Scriptures. There's some, and just recently, you hear that Christ appeared to his disciples after the crucifixion in several different places at the same time. Well, they just recently discovered a particle that can exist in several different places at the same time. So it's like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. And it's like Harry Truman said, the only thing that's new in this world is the history that you don't know. And both Solomon and Mr. Truman are entirely correct. So that's why we do it, because it's all interconnected anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just pick something. It's like a grid of information. Everything is related to everything else in some way. And of course, ultimately, it's related to creation. Right. And until people can tell me where they were before they became sentient beings, and absolutely where they're going to be, what realm they're going to be in when they leave, well, they don't know what they're talking about. So go with what you know.
Right.
To be true. And if you bring it into your life and you go, it's working. Well, it's not by accident that it's working. It's working because it's working. It's supposed to be working. It does work. That's why it's working, is because it does work. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question. I hope I covered it.
I believe you did.
Well, and it was a very nice surprise to listen to a couple of your shows and see that you do add your own religious beliefs into it, because, as you said, there are so many that are afraid of doing that now. If you had to encourage people either to voice their opinion or voice their beliefs about things, what would you tell them?
Don't be afraid. There's nothing to fear. Be as it says in Scripture, be slow to speak, but be quick and eager to listen. And the other part is, inasmuch as it depends on you. This is from Romans. I just read it on the program today when we were talking with a man about these subjects. Inasmuch as it depends on you, get along with everybody. In other words, if it's up to you to get along with people or not, then make the decision to get along with them. But if somebody, what is unspoken is that if someone comes against you with hostile intent, then you're going to have to deal with it. There's nothing wrong with self-defense. And when these fools talk about, all of those people in the South, they just cling to their Bibles and their guns. I can't think of anything better to cling to in that order: your Bible and your firearm. Because there are people out there that want to kill you just because you have a Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that strikes me as just a little bit unreasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
This is about like people. This would be about like, now if there are Christians running around going, kill the Muslim, he has a Quran, we must kill, and then dance around like a bunch of bleeping savages while they cut somebody's head off, well, that'd be one thing. And all these morons out there will say, oh, well, there's a Salem witch trial. There are very few women that were killed, murdered by these freaks. And probably what happened was they got so carried away. These were probably, I theorize that these were probably very hot women who turned these guys on, and it probably made them think, oh, well, if she can make me hot to trot and ready to go, or horny, in other words, well, she must be evil and must be killed. Or they could have been just psychopathic killers that really got off on killing women. We know that there are people like this. Well, what's to say it wasn't Ted Bundy in a collar?
Right.
In a Puritan suit.
Right.
But that didn't last long. And people talk about, oh, the Crusades were the ones that started it. Read a history book and find out what happened. The only reason that the Crusades were ever launched is to reclaim land that had been stolen by, guess what, the Islamists, the Muslims from countries that were Christian. Turkey was Christian. Lebanon was Christian. Syria was Christian. All of those countries over there, with just a couple of exceptions, and I don't even know what the exceptions are at this moment, they were all Christian. But here came the head choppers, and they did the same thing to those countries that ISIS is doing now. And that's another story, ISIS. Oh my gosh, that's just...
Yeah.
We just dropped 50 tons of ammunition to the Syrian rebels. Well, guess who the Syrian rebels are?
ISIS.
Guess who provided ISIS with the Toyota pickup trucks to mount their Soviet-built weapons on? Oh, that's right. There were some American-built weapons that were mounted on them, too.
Right.
What do we think Benghazi was about? It's because this is my theory, Ambassador Stevens knew about ISIS before any of us did. They already let it out of the bag that CIA trained ISIS in Jordan. And the king of Jordan flipped out when he found out that this information had gotten into the public domain. He was mad, as in so angry that he was nuts about this. But that's what it's all about. Now, the big question is, what's in it for us to destabilize that part of the world? I believe that we have, if not a Muslim himself, then someone who is deeply sympathetic to the Muslims, whether Bill Ayers wrote his book or not, that dreams from the idiotic title, Dreams from My Father. Remember the part in there where he says that if it comes right down to it, he would side with the Muslims? I mean, what kind of a person would write that into a book? Well, the same kind of a person that would say things like, I'm pretty good at killing people.
Yeah.
My opinion is the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked, and this person needs to be removed from office.
Yeah.
Before he gets a bunch of us killed, if not all of us. He's trying to start World War III with Vlad Putin right now. And Senator Insane McCain... hey, Vietnam was a long time ago. You got caught, you got beat up, okay. Well, that was another BS war, too.
Right.
So, thanks for your service and all that. We feel for you. I don't think I would have wanted to be in a Viet Cong prison camp either. But to come out publicly and say, well, we don't have to shoot down the Russian planes ourselves, but we could do what we did in Afghanistan and arm some rebels and get them to shoot the planes down. It's like, this guy's a real genius, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he needs to be removed as well. And remember, everybody, don't worry too much about who's in the president's office for 4 years or 8 years. What you need to be worrying about are these career politicians who are in Congress for 20, 30, 40 years. We need term limits on these Congress people. And we need them now, because if we don't effect our will, we're going to lose this country. And I'll tell you what, it's hard to kill a republic, but it's a lot harder to kill the monster you replace it with. A lot harder. Absolutely. And a lot bloodier. And we better get a hold of this thing while we still can. And we are rapidly running out of time. I mean it.
I agree. And I mean, we knew about several terrorists, such as Osama bin Laden, who we trained, and it just keeps rolling from there as to how many people we're helping, along with the same thing with the nuclear thing with Iran.
I got to tell you, let's roll this back to the Kennedy assassination just for this one example.
Okay.
We were so naive as a citizenry that they would never be able to pull off today what they pulled off then. I'll just ask this one question. How does a Marine radar specialist, excuse me, not an operator, not a technician, a radar specialist, United States Marine Corps, defect to Russia during the height of the Cold War and then come back with a Russian wife? How does that happen?
Yeah.
Answer, he's CIA. Lee Oswald was CIA. Bin Laden was CIA.
Right.
His family, the Bin Laden family, as I'm sure you know, but maybe some of your listeners don't, that's the biggest construction company in the Middle East. Friends with the Bushes. Well, John Hinckley, the guy who shot Ronald Reagan, the Hinckley family is friends with the Bushes. George H.W. Bush was director of the CIA for how long? 1 year. But I suspect he was CIA beginning in about 1947 when Truman signed off on it and created it. So what's happened here is when your usefulness is spent, they throw you under the bus.
Right.
And that's what happened to Bin Laden. Bin Laden said, I didn't blow up the towers. You know, you think that raid was real? That raid wasn't real. He lives in the biggest house in that little poop hole over in Pakistan. I know nobody knows he's there, right? So then in come the SEALs. We've got 2 helicopters. Oh, one of them screwed up. So what? Everybody else got on the other one? Yeah. Okay, and then what? Then the SEAL team gets shot down going through a little valley there that they shouldn't have been in. That was known for hostiles being all over the place. So they're gone, so they can't talk. And then they dump the stiff into the ocean, with full Muslim honors, of course, and no pictures. It's a lie. Benghazi was a lie. They made bin Laden the fall guy because, we funded him, right? Everybody's seen Charlie Wilson's War. Yeah, let's go kill some Russians, right? Yeah. So bin Laden puts together the Mujahideen, which actually didn't put it together. It's been around for a long time. He heads them up. He's their leader. He's CIA trained. He's CIA equipped, got Stinger missiles, got all that stuff. Got it all going on. And then he winds up being the fall guy, just like they tried to hang the Sony hacking on Kim Jong-un. He's looking around like, I didn't hack Sony. What's this about me hacking Sony? North Korea hacked Sony, really. Why? Some free movie passes or what? Then it comes out that CIA visited Sony 2 weeks before the so-called North Korean hacking. No movie gets made in Hollywood of any importance or any sizable budget without CIA involvement. And if you see that one called Kill the Messenger with Jeremy Renner, that's about the CIA dumping all the cocaine that they got from the Contras. They didn't have any money, so they traded blow, nose candy, for weapons. And then CIA took the nose candy, dumped it in L.A. It used to be known as freebasing, and then it became crack. It's huge. They had a huge amount of it, like containers and containers full of this stuff. Got to shrink it down in size. So that's when they condensed it into crack, and that's what got all these people hooked, because it was easier to move, it was easier to transport. You put a pound of cocaine in some size of like one of those little miniature baggies that you get some electronic parts in when you buy a little gadget or something. Right. So you got way less volume, you got way more power, and you can move it way quicker. And that's what they did. Well, guess what? This reporter, I can't call it his last name now, Gary something, he winds up dead with 2 bullet holes in his head, and they ruled it a suicide. And this is a fact. Yeah, so your government is corrupt from the top down. The CIA runs the government, and that's all there is to it. If you don't mess around with the CIA, they will mess with you. Yeah. I mean, they're worse than KGB ever thought of being. And they got a real long reach. And talking about this stuff, frankly, is quite dangerous, I'm sure. But then again, you got to say what you got to say. What are you going to do? Quiver like a little mouse in the corner and just say nothing when you see wrong happening? I mean, is that what you're going to do? And then what? Yeah. And you're going to go and face your maker one day, and he's going to go, well, so why did you quiver in the corner like a little mouse when I gave you every opportunity to serve me and maybe do some good in the world, but you didn't do it? Okay. Next.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we are going to take our second break here. We'll be right back to Paratruth Radio right after Justin's Paranormal Headlines.
And now, Paratruth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
Hey, Parafans. Justin here with your Paranormal Headlines. These headlines are from altereddimensions.net. Bizarre creature with body of buffalo and head of crocodile discovered in Thailand. Photos have appeared showing a bizarre hybrid-like creature found in Thailand this week. With scaly skin, an alligator-like head, and calf-like hooves, experts in the area are stumped. Villagers say that a genetic cross between an alligator and a water buffalo were born in the village some time ago, but died soon after birth. Could this be the same sort of genetic freak? The unidentified animal was found in High Rock, Wangan, in Thailand. Bones of Mona Lisa have been discovered under convent chapel in Italy. This week, historical experts believe they have found the tomb of Leonardo's model, buried under the altar of a convent in Florence, Italy. Archaeologist and art detective Silvano Vincetti exhumed several skeletons stacked on top of each other under the chapel. Carbon dating has been completed and indicate the skeleton is from the time period when Leonardo painted the masterpiece. The discovery of Mona Lisa's skeleton under a convent chapel should not be too surprising. Gerardini is believed to have moved to Florence in the late 1500s to live with her daughter, a nun. According to experts, the odds that the bones belong to Mona Lisa are extremely high. Unfortunately, the remains are fragmented and scattered, and there is no skull. The Mona Lisa painting was believed to have been painted between 1503 and 1506 in Florence, Italy, and is acclaimed as the best known, the most visited, the most written about, the most sung about, the most parodied work of art in the world. The painting's fame increased greatly when it was stolen on August 21st, 1911. The day after the masterpiece was taken, Louis Barraud, a painter, walked into the Louvre and went to the Salon Carré, where the Mona Lisa had been on display for 5 years. However, where the Mona Lisa should have stood, he found 4 iron pegs. Barraud contacted the section head of the guards, who thought the painting was being photographed for marketing purposes. A few hours later, Barraud checked back with the section head of the museum, and it was confirmed that the Mona Lisa was not with the photographers. The Louvre was closed for an entire week to aid in an investigation of the theft. French poet Guillaume Apollinaire, who had once called for the Louvre to be burnt down, came under suspicion. He was arrested and imprisoned. Apollinaire tried to implicate his friend Pablo Picasso, who was also brought in for questioning, but both were later exonerated. At the time, the painting was believed to be lost forever, and it was 2 years before the real thief was discovered. Louvre employee Vincenzo Perugia had stolen it by entering the building during regular hours, hiding in a broom closet, and walking out with it hidden under his coat after the museum had closed. And this has been Justin with your Paranormal Headlines.
This was a segment of Pure Truth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
Welcome back to Pure Truth Radio. My name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And we are speaking with John B. Wells, the host of Caravan to Midnight. John, now, there's a lot of stuff obviously happening in America. And one in particular that actually happened a little while ago now is the statue of Baphomet in Detroit. What are your thoughts on this statue being presented at a time like now?
Yeah, refresh my memory on this. What is this statue? I remember the story, but I don't remember specifically what the deal is about. What is that statue again?
This is the statue of Baphomet, which is basically the god of the Satanic Temple.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. Well, I think the same thing is it that I do of Shiva dancing out there in front of CERN. It's there are some real lunatics out there, and lunatics exist. And many of these people who tell you, oh, God's just a fairy tale, oh, Jesus is just like Santa Claus, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. These people who are doing this, they believe very much in God, but they have consciously chosen not to serve Him. Mm-hmm. They have made that decision not to. And this is the same kind of arrogance that's behind Satan's attitude, or
right.
The master of the air, who will appear as an angel of light and all of that, except he's not.
Right.
It's people. It's just more perversion, just like these parties now they're having where they actually do bloodletting, get blood on themselves and blood on each other and all of that. Mm-hmm. It's just exactly as was written in Scripture. There's some passage in there, and I can't quote chapter and verse on this, but I want to say that Paul wrote it. And he's saying that, okay, drink, want more drink. Drug, want more drug. Women, not enough. The men start doing each other. There's nothing different about this than again, there's nothing new under the sun. So when people put up stuff like these satanic memorials and these tributes to Satan. This thing with the Baphomet sitting in the chair or whatever, Goat Man. He's got a child on each side, on each arm. That's the one you're talking about.
That is.
It's just flipping the finger toward the Lord. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's just a pathetic gesture of impotence and the desire to reject God and embrace. They're like, oh, well, we don't want to do anything to the kids or anything. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Why don't you quit lying? Oh, that's right. That's your stock in trade is lies. Oh, that's right. The one you worship is the father of lies, which makes you people a lot of dumbasses because you're going along with it. You think this is going to be some sort of a party, but apparently you have failed to observe that Satan will in fact protect you all the way through the perpetration of your heinous crimes. And then, as soon as the mission is done, he will dump you like a Kleenex that's had a noseful blown into it. And that's exactly what he thinks your value is. Mm-hmm. So these are just people who have been fooled into thinking that there's something cool about this, and it's not cool. Many of them probably don't know what they're playing with. Right. But many others of them do know what they're playing with, and they do it wantonly, and they do it with great glee and delight. They should keep in mind, however, that Father is watching all of this, and he's got a real long memory. So, knock yourselves out. Go ahead and just put goat men statues all over the place. But just keep in mind, there's going to be payback for that,
right?
And you will know what the payback is for when you receive it, and they always do. Mm-hmm. But isn't it strange that there seems to be some protective force that enables a person to perform multiple serial killings and do these things, but eventually that cloak of secrecy and protection is gone. And as was stated in that Scottish play Macbeth, there they are, like naked newborn babes striding the blast, with their backsides hanging out in the breeze, about to be, buzzsawed off. And that's what happens to them. I mean, invariably, without fail. So it's stupid. In the broad strokes, it's stupid. It is not conducive to life. It is not biophilia. It is not the love of life. It is more like necrophilia, the love of death. And some people are like that. Some people are evil. Evil does exist. Right. Father Flanagan may say, there's no such thing as a bad boy. It's like, you're leaving out the psychopaths that are completely possessed. Yeah, that was a great little picture. Really like that. With, what was it, Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney? And that was a nice little morality tale. But there is such a thing as a bad boy, and we got a bunch of them in government right now. Yes. And they don't care about the people at all. And they don't care about the law either.
I agree.
And we should remember it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we are just about out of time here, John. But before we go, I would like to give you a chance to tell everyone where they can find you and your program.
Well, it's quick and easy. Do not add any numbers and do not omit any letters in the words Caravan to Midnight.com. Just Caravan to Midnight, just the words. Not Caravan and the number 2 or any of that. And if they will go to Caravan to Midnight.com and just scroll down the page a little bit, they'll see a link that'll take them over to our YouTube channel, and they can see a bunch of content for free, try it out a little bit. But after that, we do occasionally post shows that, many people simply cannot afford $15 every 3 months, $30 for 6 months, or $60 for a year. But I would tell you that there are almost 400 shows in archive right now, and none of them are bad. You will find value in each and every one of them. Full-length music cuts, totally commercial-free. We have an app for your iPhone if you use one. We have an Android app as well. You can get on your little tablet or computer or whatever. Listen to it whenever you want. Every new program is posted every night at 10 o'clock Central p.m. And I think that you will find value in it. And know that when you join us, you become part of a worldwide initiative to actually affect change in the world. For example, there was a doctor who was recently jailed. Well, his lawyer and wife came on the program. 2 days later, he was released from jail. He'd been in there for a while. A South African man, there's a South African genocide against Caucasians. You can't believe the depth of the genocide. You cannot believe it at all. They're all disarmed over there, except for the black folk, and they rent their guns and vans from the police departments. It's insane. Well, one of them they're in squatter camps. So, man needed a wheelchair, and guess what? One of the caravanners got him one.
Wow.
And on and on and on and on. So you are part of a movement for good. It's not about giving me money. It's about changing things for the better and keeping you informed with cutting-edge guests and information that you will not get anywhere else without a whole lot of trouble. So come and join us. You'll be glad you did.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an honor having you on.
It was an honor to be on with you, Eric and Justin. And thank you very much for your time and for letting me just go on and on. Cause
no problem.
Lord knows I have trouble stopping the talk. But I guess it's my lot in life, mateys.
Yep, absolutely. All right, sir. You have yourself a good night.
You too. God bless, brothers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was John B. Wells. He is the host of Caravan to Midnight, an awesome show. If you haven't had the time yet to check it out, even during the show, to just check out the website, do so. There's a lot of interesting information on the site. You can check out more about John himself. There's a library full of books in which they've had guests on. You name it. There's just a ton of information. He covers every topic imaginable. And that was something, one of the questions I'd asked earlier that you may have noticed. And, you know, it's just weird that so many shows, in fact, the majority of shows that I listen to on air, is either paranormal, sport, entertainment, business. It's only a select topic, but John B. Wells, he discusses anything and everything, and I mean literally anything and everything, which is actually really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, like he was saying, the mainstream media is not the truth most of the time, so he's approaching every subject from an alternate media view. Mm-hmm. So I can appreciate that, and definitely an awesome guy. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect getting him on, but definitely very knowledgeable, very intelligent man, and has been in the business for a long time. So we've got a lot of great things coming up on Paratruth Radio, so keep staying tuned for that. Luckily, Eric was able to join me this week. He is going to be out again, working on some other people's films, helping out and all that good stuff. So we do hope that all of the films come to a good wrap for all of your friends, as well as the reveal.
Oh, thanks. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I know I haven't really been able to talk much about the revealed since I left, but just so everyone knows, the plan is I will have a trailer up probably around Christmas time this year. So you can look forward to that and see just what exactly I've been working on. I can tell you it's been a long process already. It's been busy. It's been tough. And there's still about 6 months left before finally finishing the film completely. But that doesn't mean I'll be gone for 6 months. That's for sure.
I hope not, man.
No. I've only got a few more weeks here while I'll be gone. I do have 3 more movies that I'm working on between now and the beginning of December. So I'm hoping to jump on a show here and there over the next couple of weeks. If not, then I'll catch everyone in December.
And if you guys missed it, we were on Talk Supernatural Friday at 8 p.m. So go check out that show as well. As always, when we get on with Talk Supernatural, or even Kay Carswell from the Deception Detection Show, it's just one of those shows that you don't want to miss because you don't know what's going to happen. So go check that out. Definitely. And as always, we are trying to keep it happy and fun here, guys. And John was one of those guests that not only told it as it is, but kept it funny and informative at the same time. So that's all we got for you guys this week. So on that note, that is the end for us. We will see you guys next week, same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric. Peace. If you enjoyed this episode of Paratruth Radio, and you would like to listen to it again, or are interested in listening to any of our past episodes, then you can listen to them on HD at our website, paratruthradio.com.
And you can also find us at Stitcher, Blueberry, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube.
And of course, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for brand new updates of our show every day.